Before we start, I need to read to you the full presentation information that I know you know, but we still need to be clear about where we're going. In this part of the competition, you are taking on a fictional business identity and assigning a fictional business identity to the judges. And you've made us boards of directors, correct? Please make sure everyone knows who you are and who they are before you begin. You'll have 25 minutes with a 5-minute cushion to describe the legal, financial, and ethical dimensions of the problem and to recommend a solution that passes muster on all 3 counts. During this time, the team will be uninterrupted. When you finish, the judges will ask you for 20 minutes questions. During the Q&A, both you and the judges stay in character. After the Q&A, the judges will give you feedback outside the role playing. Some important things to keep in mind. The ethical aspect of your analysis are the most important parts. However, they should be described in simple, practical, common sense fashion using technical, philosophical terminology or basing your argument on religious or theological grounds will be considered a serious weakness. Because that can't work in companies. So it's the language that needs to be how you would be in the workforce. Similarly, any members of the team reading his or her part will be considered a major mistake. Although you may use notes during this presentation, every member of the team must have some sort of speaking role. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question about the notes. Can you please reiterate on that? Like, what do you mean about using notes?
It said that any member of the team reading his or her part will be considered a major mistake, although you may use notes. So if you had something in your...
Like, if I had this, would I use it or not?
Well, I think the key thing here is that you are being the people that are in a business and you are talking and trying to persuade us, the board of directors, and the other board of directors that you don't get to see, but they're listening and seeing us. So think about the fact that it's reality time, and so the degree to which you make your convincing comments without needing to read verbatim stuff is potentially not giving you the benefit of the role that you know. He doesn't want to be tempted. I will turn mine to 30. Well, actually, I'm going to turn mine to 25. And then we'll do a 5-minute after that. And so
and while she's doing that, I'm supposed to remind you after this, go back to the Shaw building for a group photo for your team photo. Yeah. But because they asked me to remind the teams. I forgot the last session, but somebody else remembered, so it worked out okay.
no, I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I assume that you are ready. Oh, except never mind, because wait a second. I've been having this, go forward without, okay. Are we both ready to start at 25?
Yes, ma'am.
1, 2, 3.
Good afternoon, Coca-Cola's board of directors. Thank you for joining us in person. And to those on Zoom, can you hear me? C5, hello. We are Bach Consulting, and today we're here to dethrone the kings of plastic pollution.
Hi, my name is Billy Daly. I'm EduTrack Modes. I'm Will Sawyer.
And I'm Coltrane Howell. We are from the College of the Holy Cross. Today on the agenda, first we're going to go over the background of Coca-Cola. We're then going to go over Coca-Cola's plastic pollution issues, along with Coca-Cola's contribution to those issues. After, we'll present a new direction to go in, along with the ethical implications of that direction and the financials and the future of Coca-Cola. Since 1886, Coca-Cola has been a household name. Over 100 years committed to excellence. You guys have reached over 200 countries and have employed over 700,000 citizens. Each one committed to the mission of refreshing the world and making a difference. When you think soda, you think Coke, or one of the many brands owned by Coca-Cola. Fanta, Sprite, Schweppes, that's just to name a few. Reaching over and controlling 48% of the global soda market share. I know that's impressive, but Coca-Cola is also top 3 in the beverage industry as a whole. That's due to their brands like Dasani, Fairlife, Vitamin Water, and many more. But what do those brands have in common is plastic bottles, which I know every company uses plastic bottles when it comes to distributing their beverages. But Coca-Cola specifically has been huge in the plastic industry. You guys sell over 100 billion bottles per year, which is around 200,000 per minute. Starting way back from 1978, decades ago, introducing to the world the 2-liter PET plastic bottle, revolutionary. But let me bring in some new facts. In 2021, Coca-Cola has increased the plastic production by 9%, which is over 570 million pounds. And in 2022, increased another 6%.
All right, so you might be thinking, why is plastic pollution bad? I got 3 main reasons: environmental impact, economic costs, and human health concerns. The environmental impact is plastic bottles often get thrown into rivers, oceans, and landfills, often leading to marine animals ingesting or getting entangled in these, often leading to death or injuries. Economic costs, Coca-Cola already spends a lot of money. They're partnered with the Ocean Cleanup Company, which is a post-consumer. They clean up all the goods after Coke they buy from Coke, or the consumers buy from Coke. And then human health concerns. Often these plastics get broken down into microplastics in the water. Fish end up eating these and they get into our food chain. And when humans ingest these, it can cause a lot of problems like reproductive issues, intestinal issues, and sometimes cancer. And there's one more. 95% of plastic packaging is only used once. This just shows our overall reliance to the cheaply made plastic. 90% of plastic production is fueled by fossil fuels. This also shows our relationship between the plastic production industry and the fossil fuels industry, which often leads to carbon emission, which is also bad for the environment. And another fun fact is the average person eats almost 70,000 microplastics per year. And as I just said, that is very bad for the health. Sorry about the slides.
Sorry to interrupt, do we know the issue going on? I have zero clue. Sorry, this will answer.
Impending legal pressures, the Break Free from Plastic Act was announced in October of 2023. It is threatening to shut down all plastic production facilities until the company is economically and sustainable. Coca-Cola gets a lot of trouble for its misleading branding, including greenwashing and saying that they are more sustainable than they actually are. FDA packaging regulations, sorry about that. Often with new packaging, it doesn't pass FDA, so Coca-Cola is going to have to keep in mind in the long run to stay FDA certified.
Now, Coca-Cola has made some sustainability promises, including 100% recyclable packaging by 2025, along with a 50% recyclable content by 2030. The one issue is there's over 3.4 million metric tons in our oceans. So to combat that, Coca-Cola has also said that they'll reduce the use of virgin plastic from non-renewable sources by 3 million metric tons in 2025. Now, although that all sounds great, Coca-Cola is still the king of plastic pollution. They've been the #1 global plastic polluter for the past 6 consecutive years. In 2023, there were more Coca-Cola branded items in our oceans and on our grounds than the next 2 top polluters combined, including our competitors, PepsiCo.
So that brings us to our solution, a familiar face that you guys all may know. We propose a joint venture agreement with Loop Industries. Well, it's a familiar face for our original partnership dated back before COVID. And due to COVID implications, Loop's original agreement with Coca-Cola, they were not able to reach the expectations they had in the original timeline, and the contract was terminated. Well, Loop Industries has some newly recently developed technology that we believe is very advantageous to Coca-Cola's plastic production. Loop Industries wants to decrease our ecological footprint through a circular plastic production process. Loop Industries has the new technology that can break down any grade of recyclable PET plastic up into virgin quality, brand new PET grade plastics that can then be used into plastic products. This works by breaking down any quality of PET into its original base monomers, DMT and PEG, through a low heat, no added pressure process that Loop recently developed, which is also a patented technology that is then able to purify these base monomers and re-polymerize them into a clean, 100% virgin quality pure PET plastic that can then be sold and distributed to plastic consumers. So let's break down what a PET is. Well, PET is a type of plastic and it's most optimal for plastic bottles. It's durable and lightweight and it doesn't leach any chemicals. What's different between Loop's trademark PET and for the regular PET that Coca-Cola has been using is that Loop's PET is the first patented technology that can break down any grade of this recyclable content, so it can close the plastic loop entirely and keep it fully circular. With this in mind, this means that Loop is able to use existing plastics to produce new plastics, and that targets the plastic problem at its source, the production. So instead of creating new plastics in the environment, we'll just be reusing pre-existing plastics that, as mentioned in the previous slide down low, as you may have noticed, once plastics are created, they last for about 500 years. So in summary, why Loop technology? Well, Coca-Cola is the leader in the industry. They're revolutionary and have been for 100 years. So with this brand new patented technology, it's advantageous to be the first to take initiative and take advantage of this technology that's able to revitalize plastic from any quality up until its brand new highest purity quality that is perfect for any consumption. Additionally, it's infinitely recyclable. This means that once the plastic has been produced, created, and recycled, we don't need to make more plastics. The plastic that already exists out there is the production of plastic. And on top of that, Loop's low heat and no added pressure also helps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, whereas we know a lot of plastic production relies on fossil fuels. This would help to decrease the amount of fossil fuels that are also used to produce plastic products.
Ethical implications. Plastic pollution poses significant challenges. Environmental impact. Here, if Coca-Cola partners with Loop Industries, they will significantly reduce their environmental impact and become much more sustainable overall. Resource conservation. As Andrew just mentioned, they have low added pressure and no heat, so they so they don't have to use fossil fuels as much. And increased reputation. If Coca-Cola, the leader of this industry, makes this change to 100% recycled materials, then the next two, PepsiCo, its biggest competitor, will have to make the change as well. Loop Industry recent news, they just appointed Mr. Fady Monsauer as their CFO as of January 2024. Received a $66 million investment from Reed Management, where $33 million of it is allocated for global production, and Loop Industries just in January 2024, they just met standards of the United States and European Pharmacopoeia. So they are able to be used in pharmaceutical grade packaging.
So our proposal is to join a joint venture agreement between Coca-Cola and Loop. What we'd like to do is to install a Loop Technologies plastic production plant in North America. Loop has significant impact in Europe as well as Asia as of recent, and we believe that it would be most optimal to place this new location centered around Atlanta, Georgia, where there are a lot of distribution and sales centers nearby, as noted by the map. Additionally, with this partnership, we don't want this partnership to just be a direct fund for Coca-Cola to receive the Loop PET products. We understand that by creating one of these plants, you can only do so much with just one. You can only create so much plastic to allocate to so many bottles. Well, we want this product to be accessible, this Loop PET to be accessible to other companies that would like to create plastic products. This would allow for increased plastic pollution prevention, as this cycle will continue to help keep the plastic circulated in one giant enclosed loop. By looking at our terms, we propose a 50-50 ownership split between Coca-Cola and Loop. As mentioned, first factory would be in Atlanta due to its significant location, and it will allow us to test the significance of the bottles we can produce in a local area in the United States. And since there is nothing in North America at the moment. Based on a previous agreement that Loop has made with an Asian chemical company, SKGC, they were able to receive funding to produce a plant similar to the one that we proposed that can accumulate to 70 metric tons of Loop PET plastic annually. This accounts to 3 billion Coca-Cola 500 milliliter plastic bottles. Though that number may seem insignificant to the global 100 billion bottles that they sell every year, if we break it down into composition of where these bottles are distributed globally, the North American percentage, and specifically in Southern North America that we plan to target initially, that 3 billion would take up a significant portion of the amount of plastic bottles that would be produced. So this would be costly, and we propose that Coke would be the ones to fund the production of this new plastic facility. Well, in 2023, closing at Q4, Coca-Cola had a 12% sales boost. And this year, it is projected about 6 to 7% in growth. We think that basing off of previous projects, it would roughly cost about $200 million as an initial investment. But we think that the cost savings in the R&D department and the manufacturing costs would make up for it in the long term, as well as looking at the timeline for sustainability. We understand that the plastic loop will eventually be closed, but allowing for this facility to sell Loop PET plastics to other consumers allows for Coca-Cola to turn profit, and as well as Loop Industries, on the Loop PET that they're now going to be producing in North America to help prevent plastic pollution as a whole as well.
Partnering with Loop will set Coca-Cola on a whole new path. Coca-Cola by 2030 plans on creating 50% recyclable content. With Loop, we will double that percentage to 100. We also have to think about our atmosphere. Coca-Cola plans on, by 2050, reaching zero net carbon emission. Using Loop, we'll cut that down by 10 years. Now, just to reiterate from what you heard previously in this presentation, this is our plan on solving this goal. For the first one, Loop uses 100% recyclable content. And for the second goal, Loop's advanced technology uses low heat and no added pressure, using enhanced recyclable content instead of fossil fuels. Now, it's imperative that Coca-Cola pairs up with Loop so we stop the problem, which is plastic pollution. And we will tackle it at the start, which is the production of plastic. Now, there's no better time than now to dethrone the king of plastic pollution. Thank you, everyone, for your time today. Thank you.
Thank you. And now the board of directors will ask you certain questions, and I'd like to start What makes this issue that you're discussing an ethical issue?
Yeah, well, we think it comes to two aspects. One comes from the plastic pollution side. Will, would you explain?
Yes, plastic pollution causes many significant challenges. As I mentioned with the animals, it can cause harms to humans and our ecosystem, which we have to change very quickly.
As well as understanding that Coca-Cola would be giving up a significant amount of funds that through our financial analysis, we understand that they're in a great direction, but we understand that there are financial costs that, you know, they'd be significant. You have to reallocate your funds when you're trying to be the leader in an industry and show change and show that plastic pollution is significant and it's important to a company. So Coca-Cola would have to put money aside for the sake of their doing what is right and being a leader and showing that other companies need to follow in their footsteps and take a new solution towards plastic production.
Greg, do you have?
Well, one of my questions is, why is Coca-Cola getting blamed for all this? Isn't it our customers that are littering the beaches and you know, forests or wherever all these plastic containers? Isn't there a need to just educate the public? Why is Coca-Cola responsible for that?
We believe it's Coca-Cola's responsible ethically because they caused all this mess. They sold all the bottles. They are the leading in their industry. So if they do this, they will cause the other companies in the industry to also start.
I'm gonna take over real quick. Yeah, so we're not gonna be able to change, it's hard to change the human psychology of just, they have the cup, they drink it, they litter it. It's in our mind, it's habits. It costs one more step to walk to the trash can and throw it out. And I know that's not a huge deal to do, but humans are just so used to just wanting to do the easiest for them, not have to go towards the trash can to throw out a bottle. So it's gonna be really hard to change that human psychology and kind of just inform them that, no, don't do that. So if we change it from our end so that when they do that, it comes back to us and we're able to recycle it and reuse it, we eliminate that human psychology side of it that is very hard to control.
To add on to Billy and Will's point, the most important way to stop any sort of problem in the world is stop at the source. And we at Coca-Cola are currently the source of most of this pollution.
Thanks.
Matthew, Thomas, which one of you would like to go next?
I could go next. I want to follow on to that comment earlier. As a board member, no one wants to be accused of being the king of pollution, plastic pollution. But I look at my recyclable habits and I wondered how, to the earlier point, you're going to have do something to incentivize either the partners or mostly the consumer, because it's, unless there's some sense of urgency at the consumer level or some reward, I just don't see that happening. And that's merely a follow on and an observation to the first point. My second question is, you mentioned that this is going to be an investment long term. My question to you guys is, at what point do you see this venture breaking even? How far down the road do we have to go? And will that extra cost impede our ability to price our product profitably?
Yeah, sure. So if we would like to base it on our sustainability timeline that Coca-Cola already has, as well as our expected sustainability timeline through a partnership with Loop Industries, we believe that by the time the years that 2040 and 2050 roll around and all of our checkpoints are reached, that by having this be a joint venture company in the sense that it has the ability to also sell these Loop PET products to other consumers, that they would be able to use that money that isn't just directly, those products that aren't directly put into Coca-Cola's products, that they could be sold in return profit to help pay for additional plants that could be built in the future as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you everybody for the presentation. Very interesting. The there's lots of questions I could ask in terms of a business and financial and strategy kind of case study, but I think we're focused here on the ethics aspect of it. So focusing on the ethics, is there a specific reason why you would go with a JV with Loop as opposed to just buying the entire company and the patent or the technology of the Loop PET?
Yeah, so we based it off of an existing contract that we saw that Loop made with SKGC, which is an Asian chemical company that they were using to help distribute this technology into the Asian market. So we thought that by basing it off of example and understanding that Loop has significant understanding in how the technology works, as well as a more established research and development team, that Coca-Cola can now reallocate their spending on your research and development team to now simply, instead of spending the money to find the solution, purchase the rights to be able to use the solution, should be able to be significant for Loop Industries to also make advancements in the future if the technology is to become less reliant on even lower emissions or able to produce more tons of plastic per year.
That makes sense, but what about from a strategic perspective, if Coca-Cola were to buy Loop outright and own the patent and technology, that could be a strategic advantage vis-a-vis competitors who might not have the PET that Loop has to be recycled, etc. Are there any ethical considerations there?
Yeah, we think that raises the ethical issue of Coca-Cola then being the ones to have the right to this patented technology. And as part of our agreement between Loop Industries and Coca-Cola that we propose, we want them to be able to sell this Loop trademark PET to other entities, because we don't want Coca-Cola to be the only one preventing plastic pollution. We want everybody to prevent plastic pollution, and you can't do that without the help of everybody having access to this technology. And by Coca-Cola taking the patent, it feels like it could monopolize that system.
To add on what Andrew just said, monopolizing recycling and being able to create better, greener bottles and helping the environment would not help the world. So just by us having the JV and allowing other companies to use it, which we hope that other companies such as PepsiCo would follow in our footsteps and also have recyclable bottles, would help the environment.
And to talk about the financial sides of it, if the public gets wind of the fact that Coca-Cola would be monopolizing this technology, they wouldn't be happy, and it would definitely affect shares, and people might go, okay, I don't want to buy from Coca-Cola anymore. Let me buy from Pepsi because this is just wrong.
Yeah, I hear you. Thank you.
I have a problem with what you just said. At Coca-Cola, we are very proud of our history and we are proud of the many positive things that we have done. We acknowledge that obviously there is a problem as it relates to plastic, and that we are a significant part of that. But I have huge difficulty understanding why Coca-Cola, that you're bringing to us as a suggestion, that Coca-Cola, if we choose to, can't take over the relationship and be in a position to do the kinds of things with a partner that we can't currently do. And why is that harmful to the country if in fact we are doing something extremely significant? And from there we may have other partnerships, but you've come to us with an idea, but it's not an idea that you really want us to take leadership in, and I don't quite understand that.
Well, we feel like Coca-Cola is a leader in itself, and we're not asking for Coca-Cola to take leadership in this push. We want Coca-Cola to represent Loop Industries as the leader in the beverage industry. And this Loop PET plastic isn't just used for plastic bottles. And if we were to take over this technology, if we were to purchase Loop and be the owners of this patented technology that can break down plastic, not plastic bottles, it then takes away from the ability for other plastic producing and manufacturing plants to use a fully circular system that Loop just is able to invent as of the past 2 years. into their other products that doesn't restrict us from just aiding in plastic pollution caused from plastic bottles.
Greg, another question?
I have a
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, again, relating to the questions that were, or observations that were raised by the other board members earlier, what I understand you're proposing is just a switch from existing PET, sourcing of that plastic material to this new loop material, which is produced with less, carbon intensity and can be fully recycled. Fine. But did you explore other biodegradable materials, etc., that can entirely remove the need for recyclability downstream? Because to our earlier point, it's very difficult to change consumer behavior, and so a lot of this, even the loop PET, is still going to end up in the ocean, and there's nothing we can do about that once it hits the beach. What are your thoughts on that?
So we did look into plant-based bottles, other types of bottles, and we thought plastic was the best because, as we said earlier, plastic, once it's in the environment, it stays here for 500 years. We already have so much plastic in here that we think we can just reuse that, make it into high-quality materials to help Coke sell more.
Which of you would like to make a comment?
Are you talking to the students?
No, I'm talking to you, you all.
I would like to make a comment. As a board member here, I think we have more in common with the people, with you folks and the people at Loop rather, than you realize. Everyone wants a positive outcome for the environment, for healthcare, and to rein in our cost. Yet I'm still very hesitant knowing about consumer behavior. There has to be some way where we can align the incentives for everybody. And so we can say, yeah, if we do that, we can have a positive outcome rather. But most people act in what they perceived to be their own self-interest. So some way, somehow, we have to get everybody singing from the same page of the hymn book, aligning the incentives. And those incentives may be, and think about this, maybe we price the product differently. The plastic from Loop you can buy less expensively at the grocery store. Maybe there's some kind of a tie into incentives if you, somehow show us that you're recycling. Not quite sure what it is, but until and unless we face that obstacle, I don't think this is going very far.
Yeah, so it's important, obviously.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, so it's important, obviously, to show the consumers that at the start, we're making a difference. We're attempting to switch over to a more recyclable world, and that will show them that, okay, this is obviously a big issue. And then down the line, we could definitely make incentives to just make the consumer want to make an effort on obviously recycling, buying our product. Because of that, if that'll be higher just money on them using the recyclable machines to get money and not just throwing it in the beach, we could definitely figure out ways like that, convince states to change the amount of money they get for our Loop plastic to return it to us and just get more money for recycling. To add on to Billy's point, we fully understand what the board is saying here. The incentive of being a good person really isn't enough. There's already incentives to recycle cans and bottles for 5 cents each at grocery stores all across the United States. And sometimes that just isn't enough for people. And we acknowledge what the board's saying, and we really appreciate the comment and suggestion.
Any further questions?
I can't think of any other questions.
No.
I want to go back to the, oh, I'm sorry, Matthew, you wanted something?
No, I'm good.
I guess I want to go back to the ethics part of it. You had my attention when you were acknowledging that there were ethical issues that had a broad spectrum that needed to be addressed by what you're trying to do. But I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. I mean, I appreciate the statistics that you gave us, but as you really think about what is the driver of this, is it ethics or is it the financial or the whatever? What is it that you think is really going to make a contribution to our company that will in fact help the company be perceived as the ethical company that we believe we are, even though there are clearly some situations that need to be addressed better?
Yeah, so Coca-Cola has made these promises just to, in the future, change the way they sell plastic, carbon emissions, etc. But we allow you to take action. That's the thing, is we provide a solution, and when the public sees that Coca-Cola is actually making the change, they're doing activities like partnering with Lou to make the change, they will perceive that in a good way and will ultimately down the line just boost everyone's morale when it comes to, we can save this earth. We can save this earth, recycling one bottle at a time. And it's really important because people just lack that importance that we just need to stress it, and through commercials and other ways of just showing that Coca-Cola is making the difference that everyone's saying they want to make, but we're giving you the actual solution and path to make those changes.
I also feel that a bit of the disconnect comes from Coca-Cola's influence, and I feel like Coca-Cola's influence with this joint venture agreement isn't directly on the consumer. I feel like it's more impactful on other entities in the plastic production world. Coca-Cola is the leader in the beverage industry. I mean, we opened up our windows today to see 20 Coca-Cola trucks lined up outside. Coca-Cola is everywhere, and everyone knows Coca-Cola as it has been. And we understand that there's ethical implication that comes from financial losses and the sacrifice that needs to be made for the betterment of the people and for our globe as a whole. And we understand that by making a partnership that sure is a upfront negative cost, it should set the stage and should allow for other entities in not just the beverage industry, but industries that use plastic to follow in our lead and go in a more of a recyclable direction. Because as mentioned, we understand that not everybody's going to recycle. We know that, and that will never change no matter how much we educate people, simply because everybody acts on our own self-interest. But we understand that by leading as example, we will have a greater impact on other entities to help move forward as well.
Any further questions from the board? No? Well,
Not
it
for me.
turns out, okay. If that's the case, then we will take it off our rolls and talk to you about what the feedback is we want to give you. Because you're going to have 2 more events with this topic. Who would like to go first?
I don't mind going first. So I'll just go in order, and I'm gonna just focus on the delivery, like your speaking and presentation skills. So Billy, I think you had a really good delivery. I think all of you could think about slowing down a little bit. I think, Will, you tended to sway a little when you were center stage. That's just something to think about. And one thing I noticed a couple times where when you just were at a loss for words or trying to remember what to say, you'd say sorry. A couple of you did that, not just Will. You never need to apologize, and it's okay to have a pause. We know you have to think, especially when you're not reading from a teleprompter, you know, there's gonna be pauses and gives us a chance to digest the information. So don't think of silence as a horrible thing, you know, silence is golden sometimes. Coltrane, I thought you had a great delivery, again, slow down a little bit, but you have a great voice and very, very engaged and good eye contact. So overall, I thought you did a great job. I gotta say this, the red blur, it always distracted me on the slide. It seemed like there was somebody's finger in the lens of the projector. So it's just a style thing, and that may be just me, but I would just watch out for things like that take away from the content of your presentation. I thought the slides were very, very well done.
Thank you.
Matthew or Thomas?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on the slides. I thought the graphics were really well done. Very professional, easy to follow, and kind of set up your storyline. As a board guy, I'm looking at the title and it said something like the King of Polluters or something like that. Maybe you might want to tone that down a little bit, given the audience you're speaking to. I think everyone in the room wants to get the same outcome, but nobody wants to be the king of polluters. I think we've recognized that, yeah, we have quite a large footprint out there in the pollution world, but we don't want to be identified like that. So just something to think about. The other thing is that, you know, in addition to making Coca-Cola and other beverages, Coca-Cola is like one of the most powerful advertising enterprises in the world. And they also do joint ventures with folks like McDonald's and restaurants to promote their product. A thought I had was maybe there's some partnership out there that would move the consumer to want to recycle this new product that we're talking about, a much safer product. I don't know what that looks like, but the power of advertising at Coke is enormous. And for you guys, you students are way too young to even probably know about. Years ago, they did this commercial called "I'd like to teach the world to sing." It was enormous. It was the biggest advertising of its time, and they did it to change behavior about Coke. I would also say that look at how the tobacco industry was once king, but now they're talking about banning smoking entirely in the UK, based on advertising to consumers to make them change their behavior. I'm not sure what the answer is, folks, but I think that there's got to be something to make the consumer want to change. Maybe they lower their waste cost with waste management. Don't know. But Coke has done these tie-ins with other business to move the consumer where they want them to go. So just something to think about.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matthew?
Yeah, from my side, I'm not there in the room, so the video is a bit far away, so I couldn't tell, you know, to the extent you're reading from notes or any script or anything like that. But the delivery was fairly smooth. I think potential additional practice to tighten it up a bit, but overall fine. I must say though, on the core content of the proposal, again, what you're proposing is just switching from regular PET to loop PET. I don't know if that gets us to a world in which we have really tackled the problem of pollution, particularly plastics in the ocean. And I think adding on what the other board member, what Thomas was talking about, with other incentives, loyalty programs, campaigns, the advertising aspect of it, would really strengthen your presentation, and you might want to incorporate that for your next round. If you could somehow add that in, it would really strengthen your presentation. And then the last piece I would mention is you gave the correct answer when I was asking the question about why Coca-Cola might not want to acquire Loop Industries outright to own the IP. I mean, certainly they could do that strategically. You gave the correct answer from an ethical perspective, that you want that IP to be available to other producers of bottles so that, you know, other companies can also benefit from using that technology. So that was the correct answer. Yeah, I mean, those are my observations. I think an opportunity to tighten up the presentation for your next round.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got several things to say. First of all, I give you a lot of credit. I think that you did some really good research. I think that you came up with an idea. But I have to be honest, one of the things that an Uber judge can do is when we read what someone says they're planning to do, then it makes sense for us to go and do research as well. And what I found is that Loop Industries, I'm going to quote this, quote, due to its poor financial performance, high valuation, and risk of bankruptcy. And this was a 2024 thing. So I know you saw something too, but I'm just, it's advised to avoid investing in Loop Industries. And that was a NASDAQ Loop. February 7th, 2024, talked about the charges that they have, charges against investors in Canada because of additional problems. So what's really important when you come back next year for a new subject, know that what you found was what you wanted to find, financial stuff, and it was very impressive. If I hadn't researched this, I would be more confident about, you know, the plan. And what I have doesn't necessarily mean it's the full picture, but just think when you pick topics that you really make sure that you're not going to be hit by surprises. Because one of the things that I hope you will do when you come back is to accept the fact that you're not students, but you are in fact the people who are business people who are consultants or whatever, because that gives you more of a capacity to be able to practice the kinds of things that you're going to. I totally agree that it's a clever idea to talk about the, what did you call them? What did you call them? The people who, you gave them a really negative thing that we talked about.
The King of Plastic.
Thank you. If you really think about being a consultant and showing up and trying to talk to someone about ideas you have, as you know was mentioned, it really is critical that you think about how you present that. Because if I were really a board of director, I would have shot you down immediately and we would have talked with somebody else. Because there's too much ego in how companies think that they are. And so you don't want to be caught in, you're not in a position as a consultant to have any reason for negative information to be expressed in a way that will shut you down when you're trying to convey. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, for sure.
I mean, it's totally appropriate as students because it's very much how a paper gets done or how other things get done, but that piece of it, the professionalism, is why it's great that you're practicing, because you don't want to get good ideas smashed because people just don't want to hear it. The other thing is, and we all may want to talk about this, you've got two more things to happen. And one is the 10-minute tomorrow. And what I'm wondering is, can you tomorrow take on the persona that wasn't quite clear today? Can you step in as legitimate consultants? Can you step in as people who hope to be paid, but you don't mention that, but that's why you don't say things to insult people? So how would you, in the 10-minute, who's going to be doing the 10-minute?
Probably us.
Yeah, probably us too, for sure.
Do you have any thoughts about what you might want to change to ensure that you're hearing other people's feedback and what will make you more convincing?
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
that's what you're trying to do.
We'll definitely try to, we're definitely gonna sound less aggressive, less like attacking folk, more just like, hey, we know you guys wanna change, we'll help you get there.
And
less-
no hay, because you are a professional. Hey. But it does matter, I mean, you're all dressed well, but it does matter that your head is not thinking the way it would in a classroom. You're thinking about the potential of how you'd want to show up if you really did have a consulting gig. You were part of a company like Deloitte or, whatever, you'd need to rise to that occasion. And that is going to be important tomorrow, just for you psychologically.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
And how about the 90 seconds?
It's me.
Okay. So you're gonna stay clear of things that in 90 seconds might cause your audience to be unhappy with you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
That's easy.
Okay. That's what's so wonderful about IBECC, and this is you're a freshman, right?
Yeah.
So you did a terrific job. And hopefully you will come up with other things, in the future, but I think it's just important to realize that, you really did a very good job. You did some good research, and yet this silly thing that I found with NASDAQ means that there's always something out there that you just want to make sure. Because if you got challenged by somebody on the board who knew about this, they would tell you that, your idea is ridiculous because they are supposed to be going into bankruptcy.
So should we stress, cause I know Andrew talked about a little that like, we took a big hit during COVID and we plan on.
That Luke did.
That Luke took a big hit in COVID.
You don't need to defend that because other people, I don't know how the other judges feel, but rather you don't have time in your tenure
Yeah.
to. But I'm just saying for the future, you need to be prepared. I would be careful about touting, what's it called, Loop Industries too far. But you're giving an example of a company that could play a significant role with Coca-Cola.
Yeah, I apologize. I read the article and read that exact quote when I was looking up initially to invest in Loop as our base analysis. And I feel like with that, I didn't mention on that specific aspect for the sake of proposal and the idea that Coca-Cola would be paying for it all up front. And our financial analysis slide talking about the new CEO or CFO was to highlight how he's new to Loop and he's helping and he's had a very strong background in Canada with financials. So that was our caveat to understanding that. And on top of Coca-Cola being such a massive and strong and financially stable company that is still growing significantly each year, that we thought 200 million out of its $260 billion valuation would be able to account for.
The problem is if a board member already knew that information and you hadn't shared that you knew that too.
Yeah, that was our expectation. We figured that if that would come up in a question, that would be our response.
But the problem is it can come up in a question, and I don't know, Greg, or what the rest of you think, but if you have that kind of an issue and you haven't been completely transparent, you're not going to be trusted potentially.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So the other piece of it, knowing that you could have given yourself some space by saying, we've done research on Loop and they have done some really significant things, and are an example of a partner, and there may be others, but this is the kind of approach that you need to be moving toward.
Yeah.
Based on whatever, so that you protect yourself.
Totally.
And if anybody knows that, they can throw out something in the real world. But I think for your 10-minute and your 90, think about how you would realistically shape. But the bigger issue is perhaps what Coca-Cola needs to get out of it. And if you guys are comfortable that you have provided what you think a company like Coca-Cola would be comfortable with, given how massive they are, I'm just wondering whether you're making too small a thing for them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I'm not sure, how you want to go with that, but it's just food for thought. I mean, you've done a lot of work and it's not easy. When did you start with this?
Sheesh,
Month and a half, 2 months? That's a while ago.
It was February, yes, February,
yeah,
March.
2 months ago.
So
To what part?
I think you deserve a lot of credit. Do you have any questions for us? Because we have a couple of minutes, we have like 10 minutes if you want to use it. So is there anything that you want to know that would make things easier or better for you about anything that you've talked about or we've talked about?
I mean, I guess just to clarify your last point about the financial status that you guys did the research on, can you guys go back to the financials line? If we were to reduce, yeah, no, go back, sorry, to the one Bill had. Yes, that one. So if we were to mention that we understand and notice Luke's current financial status, and we were able to reiterate on that and then follow up by talking about receiving a $66 million investment and a new CFO, do you think that would be a better solution, or just to not talk about it at all?
If you're gonna be talking about Luke, I think that there might be some modifications there, but I'd like to have the other judges weigh in on.
Well, I mean, I haven't judged that much, but in my impression of the things I've judged, I don't know that we got into that much of like the reality of the financial situation of, these entities, but I mean, it's a fair point, but.
You're overjudging.
But I mean, I always think of these as more of a simulation, and the reality, it has to be some reality, but I don't know if we
Well,
require them to do the due diligence that you might do in a real
from an
deal.
ethical standpoint, from an ethics program, I just wanted to make sure that they would find a way to be transparent and not, I mean, in 10 minutes and in 90 seconds, you probably would not have anything to say at all. In 10 minutes, I think, you might find what you feel is an honest way to convey Luke's strengths while also protecting the reality that it's an example. If that doesn't, if you don't, I mean, you don't have to do what I just said, obviously.
She won't be your judge next time.
We don't know.
Oh, yes, well, usually don't have the same overjudge all competitions, but maybe you will.
No, I'm sure there'll be repeats of the things that I'm doing today.
Okay.
I don't wanna make a big deal of it, I just think that you would have been knocked out in reality if that hadn't been said.
Yeah.
In a real situation. This is not a real situation. There's nobody in the environment that will be hearing it that is going to know. But think about from an ethical standpoint, how you think it should be phrased, because you have seen it before too. And there's probably a simple way to do that without spending any real energy.
Yeah, we just need to figure out how we word ourselves. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Anyone got any fun recommendations for the 90-second? That's what, that's what.
What are you thinking of, how are you thinking of framing it?
You see, I have two ideas, all right? So my first idea is, let's say it's a round table I'm at a meeting, I'm like, here's our issue, 90 seconds. My second idea is a lot more casual. We're just in the office and I'm just like, look, this is our issue for 90 seconds. But I like the first one a lot better. And I just need some recommendations on what I should say in those 90 seconds in regards to our slides, really. That's it.
Well, what do you think you need to say? What's the most important for you that you
Well-
want to convey? Because you'll be talking to colleagues, right? And-
Right. Really, what I want to focus on, which I think I can do in 90 seconds, I talk fairly fast. I want to get on the issues, especially, where's the slide? Where's our pollution? I want to touch on our pollution, spin to, our ethical implications, and I just want to go into, we should do with Lou, and that's it. 90 seconds, got to keep it real fast, so.
Making that connection between how Loop is gonna address that issue,
Yeah.
which is one of the questions that they had brought up.
Yeah.
And how is Loop really gonna fix the issue? How is Loop really gonna fix the issue? Not fix it, but at least make a dent.
Well, what you're trying to do is probably less about trying to sell Loop. It's more about perhaps, if you're focusing on the ethical aspects,
Yeah.
it's more about the importance that something be done.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you might wanna start with like, here's Coca-Cola's mission and the image they wanna present to the world.
Yeah,
Here's this huge problem that might show the opposite if we don't do something about it or whatever. You can articulate it better than I could. And, sort of show how there's an ethical problem because of this pollution and plastics issue. And that there's a solution that will really benefit everyone. Isn't that what the ethical solution benefits everyone?
Well, I mean,
Theoretically, yeah, the most ethical solution.
it will certainly create a significant progress.
Yeah.
I'm still a little leery of Loop, but anyway. And I think you're going to be, just to be really clear,
Yeah.
you're not a student, you're an employee of Coke.
Oh, for
And
the
so-
90 seconds.
For this 90-second one, yeah.
So you are talking to people around the room,
Right.
whoever it is. I mean, you may be talking to your boss.
Yeah.
You may be talking to whatever, but the whole point of the 90 second is, imagine you are an employee of the company whose case you're studying. You're at a meeting in which people are discussing the issue. However, no one's brought up ethics. There's a pause in the conversation. You've got 90 seconds in which to convince other people at the meeting that there are ethical issues that need to be addressed. Because in some ways, you could argue that if you don't focus on that,
right,
it's just another business issue.
right,
And that's not really what you're here for.
right. So with those guidelines, do I even have to provide a solution or am I just telling them what's wrong?
No, you don't listen.
What you're trying to do, though, is persuade people to see that this is a problem that
Right.
needs to be addressed.
Right. Okay, perfect, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a-
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I wouldn't judge those.
I got it.
And the ethics piece of it,
I have tomorrow.
are you doing another one with me today? Or is that tomorrow?
Around 3 o'clock?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I don't know.
But I'm saying, I'm gonna be judging tomorrow, but in the past, I never did judge the shorter.
Well, it's your first time.
I only did the long, like these.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that you should feel really good, but I also think for all of us, when we do something really good, that we get to rethink, not overthink and not to, make ourselves crazy. But just think about when you think about the 10-minute, when you read that, because you have that in yourself. Really just make sure that you're speaking to that. Because you could have come up with a great idea, but the idea that is being asked of you is to be in a meeting and talking to people. So and you can be, you certainly can be creative, but given the shortage of time, it may be easier to focus on what you can say in 90 seconds that will have impact. Well, thank you very much. all of
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.